Okay, so, last time on Gran Turismo 4, we completed the GT World Championship, and we also started the hard rally events. And as a result, well, we've now already used our first two cars, and after giving this some time and thought to think about, the car I'm going to use for the next event, I did think about using the Lancia, but since we're currently using Japanese rally cars, I figured I might as well use this. The Toyota Celica ST185, the model that preceded the banned ST205. As this was technically the model that Toyota used to win the championship before with, I believe it was Juha Kankkunen who drove this particular model of car. But I figured I might as well use a car from the Group A regulations, and that's pretty much where this one comes in. I don't believe we're going to have too many issues here, because from what I know at least, the physics of Group B cars in this game compared to Group A cars, I don't think they're really separated by that much, so hopefully we should be okay. I've only purchased the dirt tyres for this thing because, well, I figure since I am going to be using rally cars for this last section of rally events, I figure it's easier to just go with one set of tyres rather than both. So this is event number 3, the hard Grand Canyon Rally. And as ever, like we did with the previous two events, we're doing 5 laps on both the forward course and reverse course. Use precise speed control to maintain a lead over your rivals. Okay, here we go. Yeah, my pace on that previous run, there's no other way to say it. It was atrocious because of just how slow I was. I very much need a turbo if I am going to win this. No questions asked. I fucking need a turbo, and I need it now. Because the amount of time I was just losing in the corners alone, I was probably losing at least 1 second per sector. And considering how big Grand Canyon is, that's basically a lifetime. So the turbo definitely needs to be fitted. And that's pretty much what I did. Okay, let's try this again. I am really starting to actually hate this event because of the way just everything has been fucking screwing with me at this point. But anyway, before we get on, this is the way my setup looks. Not changing anything on the brakes because I don't need to. I've taken off all the driver aids, and this is what my transmission settings look like. I've brought it all the way down to 3 because I need as much acceleration as I can possibly get out of this thing in order to be successful. In other words, I'm more or less using the gear trick. And I've also taken off the downforce as well, both front and rear, because, well, I noticed the car was dragging too much on those first few runs, and it's obvious to say that by taking off the downforce, it's a night and day difference. And in all honesty, I was so close to winning before. But because of 2 very badly timed penalties that came in the worst possible scenarios, I wound up losing. When I both could have and should have won, but sadly I didn't because of my errors before. I swear to God, if I cannot get this one this time, then I might actually consider switching cars. Because at this point, I'm honestly just running out of ideas. Over knowing if with a few more tweaks, if this car actually can beat what is more or less the super rally cars of the Grand Canyon. It's obvious to me that they've definitely got tuning on themselves. They probably have turbos fitted. And that's probably why I've been struggling so much up to this point. Like, I've basically just been fucking screwed by just the superior acceleration and power that not until most recently I thought was actually possible for me to physically get this done. But I think it's obvious that by removing the downforce and also by tightening the gears, as I said before, it's very much a night and day difference. And it's obvious to say that there are definitely areas where I feel like I am now better than the AI because of these tweaks I made. This is partly the reason why I prefer to be about as stubborn as you will find when it comes to these types of events, and showing that even amidst all my struggles, and just pretty much all my trials, errors and failures, if I feel like there is a shot at success, then I will find it. That's basically what I created this channel for. To show that with enough adjustments, and if I can properly maintain my composure long enough, which a lot of the time I actually don't do too badly, then just maybe it's possible for me to physically overcome these unthinkable odds. And yes, if it is possible, and yes, if you are noticing, I am cheating by using these walls because, well, it's probably the only way I can actually keep up with the Subaru, by rubbing the boundaries of the walls long enough. I'm really starting to hate myself for choosing this car now. Also yes, those reckless tactics were absolutely necessary. Because I feel like this event has just screwed me over enough times now to the point of where I'm definitely becoming desperate to actually try and prove I can fucking win this head-to-head without needing a stage 4 turbo. I want to prove my authoritative stubbornness to just continue the fight. Continue to fight. Basically just chanting the words fight, fight, fight until I win. And as I said before, the setup tweaks, even though it feels like some of them want to kill me, I have also come to establish, of course, that since I have a little less control in the car, I know that means I'm going faster. Through some of these critical corners, it definitely shows that my car is faster. And I think it's obvious to say that up to this point now, it tells me there's a definite shot at winning this. I know some of you may not be taken to the idea of me cheating, but again, it's cost-effective measures up to this point. Because I know it's going to be expensive for me to basically spend a lot of this money on the many different rally cars that I use for these events. And that's partly the reason why I'm just using the walls so much, because I practically am in desperation mode. Just to basically prove my extremely volatile doubters wrong, that I can actually pull this off. Amidst all the pain, struggles, tweaks, and just the genuine sappiness that my discipline is being left to at this point. I still want to show that with enough tweaks, I can beat the big boys. Okay, I need to pass that Subaru sooner rather than later. And I need to make sure I do not hit him. Because I've only just managed to overcome one 5-second penalty that basically just left me crushed before. And I can definitely say this race, up to this point, there have definitely been moments where my balls have certainly been crushed. Because of just the genuine exposition of where I thought I considered myself to be on the disciplinary level. But again, as they always say, desperate action calls. I actually hate myself now. Luckily, however, that was in a selection of slow corners. Because I'm pretty sure if those corners were wider, I would have had no chance of keeping up with him. So, I definitely got lucky with that one. And I feel like if I win this race, this is definitely going to be a luck-based win. Basically, just a well-timed slingshot for me to actually pass my opponent. And to make sure I do it as aggressively but fairly as humanly possible. If I can get a shot to sneak down his inside or wherever. It honestly does feel like I'm basically a piece of steak that's just being fed to the dogs. That's kind of what this feels like, scenario-wise. As in, I'm basically trying to be the runaway snake that's showing that it can actually beat. Showing that it can actually beat just the bastards that these dogs are just treating me as. Also, yes, that desperate lunge down the inside was absolutely necessary. Also, yes, that lunge around the outside of the Subaru, that was absolutely necessary. Although I did get penalised for it, I still felt like it was fair. Because I basically had to show I could be just about as much of a bastard on these roads as what that Subaru has been to me up to this point. As in he's basically just been hitting his outright pace on me. Like we're basically just playing whack-a-mole. And I definitely feel like up to this point, there have definitely been some whacks that have left me up until now to actually feel like there is a shot at winning. There is a definite chance of me winning this, especially since I'm now actually ahead. Okay, I need to make sure I make minimal mistakes possible on this lap, because this is the lap where the marbles come in. And I definitely feel like I've slipped over those marbles. And I definitely feel like I've slipped over those marbles enough times now to say just how extremely vitalized it is for me to get this lap right. I just need to be so perfectly right through most of these corners that I actually need to show this is where I pull it off. Because I've been just taunted long enough by the later models and their superior handling, just basically leaving me in the dust and just being so bitter with their pace that initially it felt like I just didn't have a chance. But then once I put the turbo on and I started to grind up the setup and basically give my car that extra turbulence it was looking for, I feel like this is at last where my car is actually able to perform where it's supposed to be. I also just noticed I've been recording this first race now for over an hour. That's just how long it's taken for me to actually find the exact right setup just for me to have a shot at winning this. And this I can definitely say has probably been the most I've struggled with a single rally event in this game so far. I mean, yeah, sure, I've had struggles before, but not to this degree. Where it basically feels as though just the paradigm shift in rally cars up to this point, especially here at Grand Canyon, it's been almost impossible to imagine me actually pulling this off with an older rally car that succeeded until now. But against all the odds, and after being stubborn with my setup changes, I somehow, some way, pulled off the first one. And now we have to move on to the second one. Ugh. That's my immediate reaction. Because I have a feeling that's just how, just how bitter the next race is going to be. I won't say prejudicial, because I know it's not really on that scale anymore. Plus, I definitely have been in plenty of races where the odds of me actually winning were prejudicial, to say the least. But with this one, I'm just going to call it bitter. Because I definitely felt like there were shots where I very much could have won the race. But I know, of course, that there were also plenty of penalties throughout each of these attempts that could have just as easily spun me round the other way. Anyway, let's move on to race 2. Oh boy, it's the same Evo 8 that quite literally crushed me before. However, this time I have an appropriate setup to compete with him. And I am convinced in saying that since it worked against the Subaru, I am extremely hopeful in saying that this setup can work again, as it did before. And I am showing you my setup to show you just how it's been adjusted. And as ever, no weight in the car, and also driving aids are switched off. So that's what my setup looks like in terms of the changes I made, and I'm hopeful in saying they can translate to success here as well, as they did before. Yeah, I literally do not care about the fact I got a penalty for that. The taunting of this event, to me, it's gone on long enough. I just want to fucking finish this. I don't care what happens anymore. I just want to finish this and prove that it's possible to fucking win. That's all I want to prove. Even if I have to play dirty to do it, I just don't give a shit anymore. I want to show that I can win these two very, very, very bad races that have just been leaving me elusive. Yeah, that was the word I was thinking of. That have just been leaving me elusive now, to the point of where it feels like salt has just been rubbed and burned on my face. That's honestly just how it feels right now. I definitely feel like salt has been rubbed on my facial wounds, and it's basically just becoming more and more painful every time I fail. That's kind of what I think this event has been, with me choosing this Toyota and having to basically do all of the setup changes I eventually did regarding both my transmission settings and also my downforce settings, just to make sure that I had even a singular shot of actually pulling this off. And now that I'm here, well, I honestly just really want to get the hell out of here as soon as I'm done. Because honestly, the way my performance has been up to this point has basically just been particularly egregious, to the point of where it honestly feels like I just cannot get a break with just how many penalties I've already been given up to this point. And some of them were even due to incidental contact and not intentional contact. It's honestly just making me feel like a kid who's just been intentionally grounded for not doing anything. That's kind of how I feel right now. Like, in spite of me basically being a kid who's done absolutely nothing wrong, I still wind up just getting hunted down and then basically just slammed with the worst possible punishment I could possibly be slammed with. In other words, it honestly does feel like up to this point I'm basically a kid who feels like he's just been grounded for nothing. That's just how irritating I feel like both the Subaru and the Super Evo at this point have just been up to this point of the event. And I've decided I'm not going to care if I pass him cleanly or dirtily, as long as I get past him That's all that fucking matters. Passing is the only thing that matters at this point. The struggle has gone on long enough, and it has to stop. Before it makes me go even more crazy than it already has done at this point. Because the way both these races have just played out up to this point in the segment, it's honestly just been making me show just how undeserving a lot of my skills feel like they've been. And as you can probably tell right now, I'm actually pretty pissed off with the way circumstances have played out in this event, and yet somehow, some way, I'm still sticking with the car I started with because I actually showed I could win the first race. Which is precisely what I did, and now that I'm actually leading the second race, I feel like I've got another shot again at actually pulling this off. Except for saying this time, I actually lead the event. And I'm not having to basically cheat my way to the lead, because I straight up passed my opponent in virtually the first corner of the lap, and basically that's what's been keeping me out in front ever since. So leading this race, I think, up to this point, is an enormous advantage, especially when the opponent behind catches back up to you in a certain part of the lap where the AI is clearly better than the player. And I think it's fair to say that's what that, I think it's fair to say that's precisely what that Evo 7 is doing to me. I mean, he's basically just breathing down my neck. Like I'm quite literally just a knight who's being chased by a dragon. Just wondering how long it is before that dragon literally grabs me or eats me. That's honestly just what this event has been. It's basically been a tale of the knight and the dragon. And now, just to be clear, when I mention dragon, this does not refer to the civilized franchise of How to Train Your Dragon. It's not that in any way whatsoever. This is... If you honestly thought for sure this was a tale of How to Train Your Dragon, then I would honestly say that sounds about as erroneously wrong as it gets. Because it honestly does feel like I am basically a knight who is just constantly being hounded by a dragon. That's basically what this has been up to this point. Like I'm basically just having to suffer the consequences of losing almost every time I fall behind. Which to me up to this point is, well, just straight up, well, horrible. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I was looking for horrible. I really cannot wait for this race to be over. It also really doesn't help to say that I'm actually playing this whilst hungry. my god, does it feel like the trial and error of this event has overstayed its welcome? Because I certainly feel like it has almost definitely overstayed its welcome at this point. Because of just how much of an asshole the AI have just been in this event. For the most part. But if I can pull this off, then I won't have to do this again. And I probably won't be using the Toyota Celica again either. Because I can definitely say this is a struggle that I honestly feel like at this point has practically overstayed its welcome. Because of just how much grief it honestly feels like it's given me for most of this. As in, it feels like it's just giving me the personal impression that I feel like the osmosis of this event, I think that's the word I'm looking for, but yeah, just the general osmosis of this event, it's definitely been more trouble than what it was worth. And I think partly the reason for that is because of the AI, and the fact of saying that it feels like I'm just... And the fact of saying that it feels like I'm just constantly being breathed down my neck by the time I get down to the last sector of the lap. It's honestly just ridiculous. To think that I actually stuck with my gut in proving that I could pull this off, and now that I am hopefully on course to pulling this off, I feel like because I got past the Evo early, that's precisely what has been making this feel like it is a very satisfying win. Excuse me. But also a very relieving win. Just to the point of where it feels like my choice of car has just avoided the chopping block. And that basically means my hopes and ambitions of continuing to experiment with the cars I use, that can actually continue. I also know that Evo 7 is an absolute beast in this final sector of the lap. It's basically the main reason why he keeps ending up behind me anyway, because he just seems to take these corners a lot better than I do. And that's why he seems to keep breathing down my neck almost every time we go through this part of the lap. It's honestly just ridiculous with how much time he makes up. And he's right behind me again, but he's not gonna get me. Ah, finally! Fucking 1.5 hours later. The trial and error was fun to begin with, but then, because the struggles just continued to the point of where I just had to clear my opponent as soon as physically possible in that race, I actually pulled it off. That was wild. That was honestly a wild race, and not even in a good way, in my opinion. because of just how many setup tweaks I had to make just to make sure this car could do it. But then again, I suppose it's part of the fun. Point is, it's done now, and we can just move on to the next one. I certainly won't be missing this event because of how much I struggled to just try and establish a footing. But whatever. What's done is done. Now let's get our prize. Huh. Why am I not surprised? We get the Mitsubishi Starion for winning this event. I'm not surprised in any way whatsoever. I'm really not. But yeah, just to spend 1.5 hours getting through those 2 races, it really was not my cup of tea in the end. But somehow, some way, I kept tweaking the setup. I kept fighting as much as I possibly could to stay on this horse. And at the end of the day, I actually got my horse to stay alive long enough to reach the finish. I really hope I don't have to go through that sort of thing again. Because to put it simply, I did not enjoy that experience. So we're now up to 46% completion, and my win ratio has understandably dropped down again. And we've now nearly driven 1,300 miles. As with this Toyota, altogether with all my struggles, I drove almost 59 miles in this thing. That's definitely more than it should have been, in my opinion. But whatever, that's just me. Let's now find our Starion wherever it is. It's right down here. The 1984 Mitsubishi Starion 4-wheel drive rally car. I have a feeling all of these cars we're winning, they're basically selling for just identical prices in pretty much every intricate detail. Just basically selling for the exact same price every time. But anyway, whatever. The hard Grand Canyon rally is done, and I did so using my Toyota Celica. And next time, we'll be doing the Whistler Ice Race, coming up next.